So I'm imagining that that marijuana will be distributed in stores that sell other stuff. If you've got a portion of your store where you are selling beer or whatever, I can very well imagine that next to that is the marijuana consumables, and that it's not a single-purpose store. I'm guessing that those will be permissible, and that over time, that's probably what you're likely to see the most of. But the statute is sort of written as if they're contemplating a marijuana establishment, a little boutique, a single-purpose store. We'll probably see some of those, but I think over time the other is going to be what's most likely.
I think I know the answer to this, but I'm just curious.
Oh, good. It's my favorite kind of question.
Oh, over here.
Where are you, though? Yeah, okay.
So in the medical marijuana world, there have been situations where distribution, cultivation companies, they sign on to a host community agreement for some sort of revenue sharing. Mm-hmm. So the question is, is this local option tax intended to basically replace anything like that, or potentially be in combination with? How does that work?
I would say that it is in combination with a host community agreement. I would be horrified to discover that somebody is going to interpret the existence of a 2% tax to mean no host community agreements. The host community agreements sometimes have revenue sharing stuff in there, and presumably that will be reduced some if there's already a tax. But there are lots of other kinds of provisions that are in host community agreements that we want to be able to preserve.
Thank you.
I'm completely naive about marijuana, and it's honest. It seems to me that 12 plants is going to generate a yield of higher than 1 ounce. Is that limit for public possession? Is there a different limit for what you could store in your house if mum and pop were kind of saving it up?
Yes. This is the limit in your house is by the number of plants. If you've harvested your plant and you have a little bowl full of plant parts, what goes on inside your house is probably covered by the plant quota. So it's really, when you talk about possession, you're talking about possession in outside of your home.
So you can grow 12 plants, cultivate them, package them up, do another 12, save it up for Christmas.
I believe the answer is yes.
Does anybody know how much one plant yields?
No, and I don't think I don't think there is a standard unit.
Well, that was the next question, I guess. I mean, how big can these plants be?
8 or 10 feet, I think, is they can be as high.
Sorry to hijack with frivolous questions.
Hi, Raymond over here.
Okay.
All right.
Hello.
Thank you very much. A lot of great information. Thank you so much. Matter of fact, and you may have said this, and I apologize if you did.
That's all right. I'm always happy to say the same thing over and over again.
Great. Well, I'm a guy who needs it twice.
Okay.
Small words, say it slow. You said to prohibit requires a vote in a city, correct?
Yes.
As far as adoption of a moratorium, is that the local governing body that would do that? Or
yes. So most of the moratoriums that we saw, in fact, all the ones I saw, in the medical marijuana area were zoning. So they require, there's a process. It has to go to the planning board. They have to hold a hearing. And then it goes to the city council or to the town meeting, and there's a vote, and it requires 2/3. So all of that process would remain in place.
Okay, fine, thank you. And the gentleman before me asked the question I was going to ask about capacity. But I do think, I don't know about capacity of pot plants, but it would seem to me 12 in a household would allow to build capacity. And with capacity comes the idea of overflow.
Some people consume pretty fast, too.
I understand that. But with capacity comes the ability now to sell and put just more pot out on the streets. So I think it's a concern. Thank you.
Is interstate commerce permitted under this law? Obviously, in Colorado, they have no laws. I mean,
No.
Where will people get, their plants, et cetera, right now? I mean, you have to find a marijuana seed growing wild in Massachusetts.
I don't know the answer to that. I know that interstate commerce in marijuana plants, seeds, is currently prohibited by federal law. So I have to assume that all the seeds will spontaneously arrive in Massachusetts, and I hope that we don't ever find ourselves in the situation where we have to worry about that. But we'll see.
I have a question over here.
Okay.
We're not the first state to approve recreational marijuana.
That's true.
Can you speak to what the states that have already legalized it, what they might do differently if they could do it all over again? What did they find to be the pitfalls, the problems that they encountered, being the pioneers in this field?
Well, I'm not an expert on what's going on. Colorado is where most of the experience exists, the longest experience. And I'm not an expert on Colorado, but anecdotally, I have heard that the biggest problem is shutting down the black market. That is, if we're going to allow retail facilities to sell this stuff, and we're going to make them go through the process of having a license, then we need to be fairly vigilant about people who don't have licenses aren't allowed to do this. Otherwise, those licenses aren't worth anything. People won't bother to get them. So keeping the underground or the black market under control seems to be the biggest issue that I have heard discussed in Colorado. And I can't tell you what our plans are for that. I can just say that seems to be a real issue, and people understand, people who are buying pot today, that's where they're buying it from, their neighbor, their friend, their local chemist, whatever. And so this statute assumes that we're going to change that paradigm to this new paradigm. And, putting a new paradigm in place doesn't mean everybody's going to immediately say, okay, now I'm going to go over there. So that seems to be, I think, the biggest issue. And I have not heard that Colorado has been beautifully successful in dealing with that.
I have a quick question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Since history is a pretty good indicator of what's going to happen, how does this, or has there...
Is it?
Yeah. Have there been any parallels to Prohibition where everybody was having speakeasies and all of a sudden there were liquor stores when they were smashing stills for those people who didn't have liquor stores?
Gee, I hope that doesn't happen. I really can't talk to that. Obviously, the parallels to liquor prohibition are many, and it was a real herky-jerky period of history. I assume that law enforcement will, from time to time, raid, I don't know what the right word is, moonshine marijuana facilities that don't have proper licenses. Whether they'll smash them is another story. I hope it doesn't come to that.
Hi.
Hi.
So I have a few questions in reference to personal use and plant count in
Okay.
residents. So it says you can't have more than 12 plants. Now, are 12 plants fully flowering plants, or are these just 12 total? So that's only saying that you can flower no more than, or you can only have no more than 12 plants. Meaning, so I flower 6 plants, plants harvest 2 ounces apiece. That gives me 12 ounces, which is more than the limit. But it also says here that you can possess 10 ounces of marijuana in any marijuana produced by the marijuana plants. So it's kind of contradicting saying that you can possess more than 10 ounces because a plant can possess up to 3 ounces to 4 ounces, 5 ounces. So, you know, it's not so clear. It's saying that you can possess whatever you produce.
Yep.
The limit of 10
Up to 10 ounces. But
Yeah.
what are you supposed to do with the rest of it?
Yeah, I'm just saying, is it?
Consume it.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. These are all issues that will have to be resolved when they do regulations. The problem, you know, with this statute is it's filled with, you know, contradictions of that sort or uncertainties, and they'll need to be addressed in the rulemaking process. I don't know the answer to that. And my sense is 12 plants is 12 plants, and it doesn't matter whether they're flowering or not. But the CCC might have a different view than I do.
Yeah, it seems like 12 plants is the max that you can have in a household. So whether you flower 6, you know, you always have some that are, you know, ready for the next time or something. So
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have to see how that develops over time.
Sorry.
Sure.
The tall man in front of me. I remember how long it took our planning board to write the medical marijuana bylaw, even using other people's bylaws and the model bylaw from Cambridge. And we are at the moment, still a one-zone town, residential, and retail and consumer service establishments are allowed by special permit. Is a special permit enough to regulate a retail marijuana store?
Is it enough?
Is it strong enough without, without writing a whole...
I have written special permit bylaws that go on and on and on and on. Yes, it is certainly possible to regulate them within an inch of their lives. But it's not simple.
Simple, I didn't think.
So it could be the facilities, because of the fact that the licensing takes place at the state, you don't necessarily have to regulate every aspect of it. Assuming the state's done a reasonable job, you've got a baseline. So you only have to worry about what additional things need to be concerned about.
Okay. Thank you.
Now we've got a couple questions over here.
Okay, I'm sorry. I can barely see over there. Okay.
What if somebody has a hydroponic organic greenhouse already, they have a farm, and they decide to switch over sometime in the future?
Yes.
Would they be considered experienced? You know, if they apply in an application and they can't, who decides if they're experienced? Our town, at the board, that they're already experienced?
I think the CCC will decide who's experienced.
They do that.
They will decide it.
But they're considered
the statute didn't tell us what experience means, other than that apparently some people who have no experience at all will qualify.
Okay. And one more question. I don't know if in Colorado the retail people were not allowed to put their money or profits from this in the banks. Is that true?
That is true.
Now, is that going to be...
That's federally regulated bank.
That what?
A federally regulated bank. Under federal regulations, the banks have to treat that as the product. I'm not a criminal lawyer, but the product of illegal activity.
So would that be the same here?
Apparently.
What about the 2% tax that we would get from the town? What do we do with that money? Can we put that in the bank?
Oh, these are all good questions.
Or do we just put it in our cash coffer?
I'm reminded of the King of Siam saying to Anna, "I make better question than you make answer." I don't know whether our 2% tax revenues are going to run afoul of that. I'm going to say not, but I don't have any actual basis for saying that.
Hi, quick question about the school buffer zone.
Okay.
In general, that has been used to mean public and nonprofit, kindergarten, preschool, nursery school sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
Is that also going to hold for this?
I believe that is true, and the medical marijuana area, many towns chose to increase that to a larger.
Yeah.
1,000 feet or 1,500 feet.
Okay, so there would be a local
So
opportunity
that would be a local
to add
option
to the
to do it,
regulatory.
to do more,
Okay.
I assume.
All right, great, thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay.
The 90-day response period from the municipality once the licensing process begins.
Yes.
Should we assume that's going to be treated more like receiving a liquor license versus the current RMD process where an applicant is well within the process of receiving their license before they go and get their local permitting? So, are we going to be put in a situation where Pittsfield receives notice that someone wants a license in Pittsfield, and then they have 90 days to get through a permitting process?
No, that's not
Okay.
what that means. What that means is you have 90 days to tell to notify the state whether or not you have a prohibition that would be violated or a land use rule that would be violated by this. If I were in this business, and I'm clearly not, if I were in this business, I would try to get my local permitting locked in early before the license is issued, and so that when the license is issued, we're ready to go. I would not do them sequentially. I'd do them more or less at the same time.
We're already receiving calls, so based on the level of sophistication of some potential applicants, that's just a concern I have.
Yes, I'm aware a lot of the towns are getting calls, even applications. I'm building something. I'm building a store, and just so you know, I'm going to be applying for a license to sell marijuana in this store. And because of the way that the statute is written, if you allow retail stores and your zoning doesn't distinguish, it's just a retail store. So that's why a lot of towns are scrambling either to do a moratorium or trying to sort through these kinds of differentiations.
I think mine's tied to what you just said.
Okay.
We have an overlay district for medical marijuana. Do you recommend that we amend that to now include this recreational and retail, or do we need to have a new overlay district that covers this?
Do you have a facility?
No.
Okay, so there's a little quirky provision that I didn't talk about that seems to say that if you have a facility that is permitted by your zoning, in whatever district that is, you have to allow retail in that, you have to allow recreational facilities of the same type in that same district. But I believe I read the language to mean only if you actually have a medical marijuana facility does it apply. I don't see any inherent reason why a recreational retailer and a medical retailer should have to be in the same place. I mean, they're not the same. Maybe unless they are. I mean, if if they kind of look and act the same, then maybe. The statute seems to assume that all these medical marijuana facilities are just going to go away and they're going to turn into the general purpose retail facilities. I'm not convinced, mostly because the medical marijuana facilities are all owned and operated by nonprofits who at least have taken on the aura of the medical profession. And, now it's, going to, you're going to have a facility, Pot and Munchies. And it's, it's a different culture. And I would not presume to tell you anything about where you should put these things. That's outside my portfolio. But if you have a facility, just be cautious that if you have a facility, there's limits to what you can prohibit for retail facilities if you have a medical facility. Okay. One more.
Thank you. So you suggest that growing facilities are manufacturing. So
I think they might be.
Right, they might be.
They might be. It depends on how you've defined it in your local zoning.
Right. So, do you think the state regulations are going to define that as manufacturing? Or they've already defined it as not agriculture. Not agriculture. So it doesn't leave a lot of options that it becomes manufacturing. So there's some towns have prohibited manufacturing in their town, but allow, for instance, light manufacturing. Mm-hmm. So, right, it would seem it would fall more under light manufacturing than manufacturing.
Yeah, there's not much in the way of, smokestacks and things. Yeah. So yes. But in general, I don't think it's a good idea to just assume, to just say, well, we don't have to adopt anything. We'll just see what comes, and then we'll try to pigeonhole it under our zoning as best we can. Ideally, cities and towns should maybe think about this, where they want them, whether they want them, under what circumstances do they want to limit them in proximity to each other or to schools or to playgrounds or all those things, and adopt some set of special rules that are applicable to these facilities, rather than just treating them as they would be today, as just the same as any other kind of a retailer or manufacturer. We got one here.
What would be the regulations on growing my 6 plants outside on my property and not in the house?
If it's within your residential property, I believe it doesn't have to be indoors. It can be outdoors.
It could be right on the property.
Yeah.
Outside.
Mm-hmm. Although the growing environment in Massachusetts isn't so great. Okay. All right.
So let's have a big round of applause for our speaker. I found this very informative, and I've also found that we still have much to look forward to in terms of some clarification. And as we do move forward, thanks to the software Eventbrite, which you registered for, we have your email addresses. So if you'd like to continue to receive information about this, we may need to have more of these sessions or more information coming forward. I'll assume, unless you go through on that back list and cross your name off, that you'll want to receive this information. And we'll be providing that as we can as this moves forward. And secondly, as the Planning Commission, we are contemplating preparing some suggestions for our legislators in terms of amendments. If you'd like to participate on a small working group, please see me or give me your contact information, or Nat Carnes, our executive director. You can find our information, our contact information, at our website, www.berkshireplanning.org. Just put in Berkshire Planning and it should come up. So with that, thank you all for coming, and